Story 1. My family poops big. Maybe it's genetic, maybe it's our diet, but everyone births giant logs of crap. If anyone has laid a mega poop, you know that sometimes it won't flush. It lays across the hole in the bottom of the bowl, and the vortex of draining water merely gives it a spin as it mocks you. Growing up, this was a common enough occurrence that our family had a poop knife. It was an old rusty kitchen knife that hung on a nail in the laundry room, only to be used for that purpose. It was normal to walk through the hallway and have someone call out, "Hey, can you get me the poop knife?" I thought it was standard kit. You have your plunger, your toilet brush, and your poop knife. Fast forward to 22. It's been a day or two between poops, and I'm over at my friend's house. My friend was the local dealer and always had guests over, because you can't buy weed without sitting on your ass and sampling it for an hour. I excuse myself and lay a gigantic turd. I look down and see that it's a sideways one, so I crack the door and call out for my friend. He arrives and I ask him for his poop knife. "My what?" "Your poop knife," I say. "I need to use it, please." "WTF is a poop knife?" Obviously he has one, but maybe he calls it by a more delicate name. A fecal cleaver? A dung divider? A guano glaive? I explain what it is I want and why I want it. He starts giggling, then laughing. Then lots of people start laughing. It turns out the music stopped, and everyone heard my pleas through the door. It also turns out that none of them had poop knives, it was just my fucked up family with their fucked up bowels. FML. I told this to my wife last night, who was amused and horrified at the same time. It turns out that she did not know what a poop knife was and had been using the old rusty knife hanging in the utility closet as a basic utility knife. Thankfully, she didn't cook with it, but used it to open Amazon boxes. She will be getting her own utility knife now. Edit. Common question. Why was this not in the bathroom instead of the laundry room? Answer. We only had one poop knife, and the laundry room was central to all 3 bathrooms. I have no idea why we didn't have 3 poop knives. All I know is that we didn't. We had the one. Possibly because my father was notoriously cheap about the weirdest things. So yes, we shared our poop knife. Story 2. I admit I posted a version of this on the relationship subreddit the other day, but they closed it with no explanation, I assume, because they just decided it was fake. I can see how they might think that. But this is a true thing that happened and is happening, and now there is more to it because I actually got broken up with over it. With all that is going on, we had stocked up on supplies, including some canned goods. I ordered a few weeks ago 30 cans of beans. 10 are black beans, 10 are kidney beans, and 10 are pink beans. Also, I ordered 15 cans of chickpeas. I thought this is a reasonable amount of beans and chickpeas to have every now and then, and would last for quite some time. However, earlier this week, I opened the cabinet because I wanted to make a vegetarian chili using 2 cans of beans, but all of the beans were gone. What the hell? I asked my girlfriend, and she told me she buried all of the beans in the woods. At first I thought she was joking, but she explained no, she had buried the beans in the woods. WTF? I asked her to explain, and she told me she was afraid that if things get bad, we might have to worry about looters or whatever, and that the beans would be in danger of being stolen. I said I thought this was completely ridiculous and unlikely. She became angry at me and said she is protecting our beans. According to her logic, the beans are safely buried in the woods behind our apartment complex, and if we ever need some beans, she will go to the stash and dig up a can or 2, but would prefer if we save them all for if things get worse. I said, why only bury the beans? Why not bury our more valuable items? She said the canned food was most valuable for long-term means, and that since we get fresh food in our online grocery deliveries, it would make sense to continue to stockpile beans. She intends to go bury more beans in the woods every week. This was too insane for me, and I got very upset. I demanded to know where the beans were buried, and she refused to tell me. She said if I knew she was afraid I'd dig them up, I said damn right I would. She said, I will never jeopardize the beans. The following day, I tried to put my foot down, and I'm not usually a foot downer, but there are rare issues where compromise is out of the question, and I foolishly decided this was one of those issues. I demanded to know where the beans were, buried, and I told her if she was going to bury beans I paid for in the woods that I would move out. We fought about it, and I kept insisting. In hindsight, I should have just let it go and created my own hidden stash of beans in the apartment, and given her time to maybe cool down about this bean-burying scenario, but I blew it all out of proportion. Yeah, it's weird to bury beans in the woods, but why did I have to press it? What's the harm at the end of the day, in the grand scheme of things? But I kept demanding her to take me to the beans, or at least draw a map or something, and finally she broke up with me. Over the beans. I have lost the love of my life because I couldn't let the damn beans go. I am in disbelief. She moved out. Not only am I heartbroken, but I am now paying full rent instead of 50%, which is a huge financial issue for me. TLDR. I kept demanding that my girlfriend show me where she buried the beans in the woods, and she got so angry at me that she ended our relationship and moved out. My heart is shattered, and my finances are jeopardized because of a bean hoard. Story 3. Not exactly. Sexual, but when we had gynecology and obstetrics in med school, we got this girl in from the psychiatric ward. The reason she got referred to gynecology was that she was smelly. Yep, really? So we didn't quite understand the referral until we got in the room and met the patient. The patient is a skinny, young girl with the foulest necrosis-like odor I have ever felt. It was literally so bad half of us had to leave the room. The paramedics also commented that they had to roll down all the windows when driving her there. According to the referral, the smell had been there for several weeks, and they had tried everything, including forcing her to shower, to make it end, and now they sent her here to rule out gynecological issues. Well, what we found when we put her in the stirrups was that this girl had anorexia, and as a means of hiding her uneaten food from the hospital staff, guess where she had been putting her chewed-up pieces of food? Yup. She, of course, told us she had never put anything up there. Well, either there's a disease that makes potatoes grow in your vagina, or she was lying. We dug out tons of literally rotten meat from this poor girl's vaginal cavity. Some of it had to have been in there for a while, and put her on antibiotics for the terrible infection she of course had. Hospital food where I went to school isn't great in general, and it didn't help to let in ferment for a few weeks in an acidic environment full of bacteria. I will never forget that smell. Edit. To make you understand how bad it was, let me just say that the vagina of any anorexic is not a happy place to begin with, as they are very prone to nasty fungal infections. Here we started empiric treatment for both fungal and bacterial infection, seeing as we had trouble differentiating the more rotten food from her own necrotic vaginal tissue. So mix the smell of necrosis. You know how they say you never forget the smell of a rotting body? Yep, that. Rotting food, severely unclean crotch, and with a nice hint of infection to top it off. At this point in school, we had sat through countless hours of smelly surgeries, autopsies, treating homeless people in the ER, and I've never seen any of my fellow students react physically to any smell. Half the people immediately had to leave the room, and some of us who stayed had to vomit. I felt so sorry for that poor girl, both for being in that condition and for having to see everyone's reactions to it.